Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Can you believe we have already spent a quarter of 2025 already? I guess now as a content creator, I am more sensitive to how time flies. Let's say it is a month already. I need to get my TBR and wrap-up ready. Maybe a new season is coming. I need to get ready with my seasonal TBR. So with 3 months already spent in 2025, I guess it is a good time to reflect on how well I am doing with my reading in this new year. This video is actually inspired by Elliot Brooks, one of my favorite SFF creators, and the questions I have here is actually quite similar to a mid-year reading review. So I think you guys should be quite familiar with all these questions, and of course you can play along with me. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Tendency so you won't miss anything exciting from me. You can also support me by becoming my Patreon, visiting my Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi, follow my Instagram for more daily updates. Feel free to play along with me and write your answers in the comment below. We can reflect on how well we are doing so far in this new year. So without further ado, shall we dive into this first quarter reading review? Maybe we can begin with my reading statistics so far in 2025. Keep in mind that by the time of filming, March is not over yet. I still got some books to finish in this month, but for the sake of this video, I will still count those unfinished books, the statistics of them. So far in 2025, I can keep up with my reading goal in both January and February, which is to read 4 books in a month. Nothing more, but nothing less. March, of course, is not over yet, but I am over 60% into my 3rd book of this month, so quite likely I can still hit this goal in March. And if we're looking at the total page count of each month, it is more or less between 2,000 to 2,500. And by simple calculation, you will know my daily average page count is more or less 80 pages. And I guess the reason why I can't read more books is also down to this reason. It is not simply saying like, I can't read more guys, this is my limit, but also balance the time between, of course, reading, what I am creating on YouTube here, and of course, my life outside of this work zone. I honestly just can't squeeze out magically any more time dedicated to reading. I do wish I could, but if we are looking at the total page count and the daily average page count, this new number don't really increase significantly, and it always stay around with this number, so I don't really think I can read anymore in a month. If we are looking at the month with the best rating, it is possibly January with a rating of 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is definitely not the kind of like best of the best rating. I started March quite well, so potentially it could be my best reading month in terms of the rating. But currently, I am reading a really difficult book and it nearly hit me to a reading slump. So I think the month with the best rating is going to be January. To my surprise, there are 3 epic fantasies in January, and the rating of them is actually quite average, should I say. So I am really looking forward to the books I am going to read for the rest of the year, because you will know later there are quite a lot of exciting titles coming in the next quarter. After going through my reading statistics of my first quarter, finally we can dive into all these questions. Maybe we can start with something positive first, the best book of this quarter. To be honest, it is quite hard to pick one up, not because I have so many 5-star books. No, there are none. And all the books that I have finished in this quarter feels to me they are all a bit average. But if I need to pick one up, I will probably say it is going to be The Rise of the Ranger by Philip C. Quintrell, the first book of the Echo Saga, or you can say it is the first book of the trilogy called The Echoes of Fate. If you haven't heard about this series before, basically it is a 9-book epic fantasy series featuring the good old battle between the good and the evil. In the very first book, we are introduced to 2 main powers. One is of course human and the other one is elves. Human of course can further divide it into several kingdoms, several empires, or maybe the role they are holding. Let's say a ranger or maybe a grey coat. It is like mercenary and a peacekeeping force. However, the plot is actually pushed by the elves. Basically, they hate all human because many years ago, human taking over what the elves have developed. So coming to now, they want to fight back and get back what belonged to them rightfully. But as the plot unfolds, there are many layers of plan within a plan. As a reader, you need to think about which side you are going to trust, or maybe you don't really get what is actually going on, but of course in a good way. I find the writing of Philip C. Quintrell is just so accessible. Even we are jumping into a brand new fantasy world, the world building itself is just enough not to get overwhelmed by. The plot, like I said, is really intriguing. As a reader, you will be so eager to find out what the plan actually is. Surprisingly, there are also plenty of lively action after action, so you don't want to put this book down. I think this book is really a solid start for a brand new modern epic fantasy series, and if you are into The Bound and the Broken by Rand Cahill, another very popular self-published epic fantasy series, I think you shouldn't miss this series out. If we have the best book of this quarter, of course we are going to have the worst ones. It is such an easy tag to me, I'm not going to lie. At first, I thought my reading taste is quite exquisite and picking a terrible book would be quite hard for me, but I guess new year, new me, my high rating radar has gone wrong. In just 3 months, I can already pick 2 terrible books. The first one is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, the second book of the Crescent City trilogy. I really love the first book of this series, House of Earth and Blood, with the character growth and also enough spice. But coming to this sequel, it is honestly a bit disappointing. Firstly, I think the plot itself is not really that interesting. The missing person or the political plan, I just find how this plot turns out is a bit meh. Most importantly, I don't think Sarah J. Maas has utilized these side characters well. In the second book, we got more POVs from the side characters. There are some really strong potential storylines, but quite a lot of them feels to me a bit rushed or not utilized well enough. Also Hunt, an archangel with such a tragic history. Coming to this book, he was like, in his eyes, always Bryce. I wanna fuck her. I wanna have sex with her all the time. Nothing about him really, other than having sex with Bryce. I did make a reading vlog of this one for Valentine's Day as a special project. So if you want to find out how disappointing this book is, you can check that video out. Oh my god. Speaking of disappointment, I also have The Crossroads of Twilight by Robert Jordan, the 10th book of the Wheel of Time series. It is actually a book I am currently reading and haven't finished yet, but it is just so boring. I don't feel engaged in the story at all. I think it is because of the writing and the pacing of this book. The length of each chapter is just so long. I am actually reading it on my Kobo and I can see the Kobo page count on top of the screen. If I have the same format and read another book, the length of this Crossroads of Twilight is almost like an epic scene in another book. So it is crazy, and I mean every chapter is the same. Most of the time it is like Robert Jordan keeps reminding you the details of this series. Let's say the relationship between the characters, what they have gone through, and it just keeps reminding you. Or maybe I don't really know how to explain it. Maybe there are just so many unnecessary details in a chapter. Let's say about the weather, about like so many minor things that can be quickly done. I think it is commonly agreed that The Crossroads of Twilight is going to be the worst book of the Wheel of Time series. I did embrace myself for it, get ready for this possibly the worst ride ever, but I just didn't expect it's going to be this bad. The Crossroad of Twilight is possibly also one of the worst books I have ever read in my life. After some disappointments, I guess I need some hope. So we can talk about my anticipated and unread new release of this quarter. To be honest, I think within SFF this genre, more exciting titles will be out in the next quarter, but don't worry, I will talk about it later. But if we are looking at the first quarter, I have two anticipated releases that I haven't started yet. First of all, it is my most anticipated release of 2025, and it is of Empire and Dust by Ranker Hill, the fourth novel of the Bound and the Broken series. The ending of the last book is epic, but tragic. I can't wait to get back to this world and see how everyone is doing. Oh, it is such an emotional journey, and trust me, every book will just get better and better. Another new release of this quarter, and I haven't checked it out yet, is from a book subscription. It is The Outcast Mage by Annabelle Campbell, and I got this book from Inkstone Quarterly SFF subscription. It is the 2025 first quarter pick, and basically it is about a student in a magical school, but she can't show her control over her power. She found a mentor, but then mentor got some sort of enemies, so she needs to pass this examination, otherwise she will get exiled. I hope that I will get to it before the next quarter comes. The next question I have is an interesting one. It is about my biggest surprise. I guess we can look at it from two angles, a good surprise or a bad one, but I am going to focus on the positive here, and I have The Teller of Small Fortune by Julie Leong. The reason it is a surprise to me is because of its genre. It is a cozy fantasy, something that I normally don't read, but this book works. I always had this question in my mind, what is a cozy fantasy? Why do we need cozy in a fantasy, and why this genre is getting so hyped in this community? But at least getting back to The Teller of Small Fortunes, my very first cozy fantasy read, there's no very complicated storyline or over complicated magic system, over complex relationship. There's nothing like that at all. I guess it is cozy because it is about a group of companions trying to find a missing daughter of one of them. What I do love about it is how heartwarming it is. It is about things like family, friends, setbacks, or maybe even immigration. And I think there's little life lessons that you can pick up along the way, but they are not over-educating, you know what I mean? If you are not feeling great, not feeling motivated, or maybe having a hard time, you can pick this one up and maybe you can learn one or two things from it. The next tag is actually quite similar, a book that made me happy. I guess my answer would be the same as the last one, which is The Teller of Small Fortunes. It is just so light, so easy to read, but at the same time, it is really heartwarming. Essentially, it is wholesome. If we have a book that can make me happy, of course we're gonna have the one that make me cry. Honestly, I don't have any books from the first quarter that can make me emotional. My standard here is J City by Fonda Lee, the last book of the Green Bone Saga, or maybe House of Earth and Blood, the first book of the Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This book did make me emotional, and you know where my emotional level is. Thinking about Green Bone Saga now, a series that I finished probably by last October. Long time already, but thinking about it, I can still get emotional. So, it is so easy or hard to make me cry. But in the first quarter of 2025, none of the books that I have read is leaning towards this side. Not really much really explore the relationships or the emotions. I hope that I can answer this tag in the next quarter because I had high hope of Empire and Dust by Rank Hill, I think that book could destroy me. I had a feeling. I don't know why. After this one, I need to find my favorite character in this first quarter. If I need to pick one up, I would possibly say Simon from the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series by Ted Williams. I know that I may have already talked about it for many times already. What I do love about Simon is how much he has grown from the beginning of the series to the end of it. At first, he was just like a blank paper, an ordinary kitchen boy working in the castle. He knew nothing about this world and suddenly got drawn into this evil plan. Since then, he has to learn, of course, very importantly, how to survive on his own, then slowly realizing his role in this bigger conflict that he never anticipated, and at last not relying on anyone but himself to make a decision. Even the side characters can see how much Simon has grown in the series. Even though maybe the pacing or the writing may not be the best in this series, Simon would definitely be a character that I can remember for a long time. Or if I need to pick a darker character, Cartridge could also be my favorite, and he is also from the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series. He was actually introduced very early in the series as like a con artist monk, but as the plot unfolds, his journey with Princess Miromel really opens up who he is. The journey will be full of ups and downs, but most importantly and slowly, the bonding between these two opposite characters develop and they have to trust each other. Cartridge would finally share his insecurities and past. This dynamic is really interesting. How this pair ends makes me emotional, but not enough to make me cry. I just love a problematic character, but with like a very interesting history. Very quickly, I can't believe it. It is already the second last tag, and I have to find my most beautiful book. With this tag, rather than answering it with a particular book, my answer would be more about my newfound favorite graphic designer, Jeff Brown. I firstly come across with his new design for the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series with the Broken Binding Fantasy subscription, and I was already really into his design. It is the sort of art direction, art style that when you come across a cover, you can tell this is designed by him. This is also the reason why I bought some new books in, just because Jeff Brown designed the cover. Other than the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series I have on this shelf, I also got Firebird by Julia Cross, and this one is from the Fairy Look Romanticy subscription. And I also have Never Die by Rob J. Hayes from the Page and Wick subscription. Like I said, you can really tell this cover is designed by who? They all scream epic, basically. Before all of this, actually the cover of the Silver Blood Promise by James Logan is also designed by him. I mean, that's it. That's like my favorite sort of cover. I also plan to get the Broken Binding, the Inheritance Cycle, and the Devils, which Jeff Brown also designed the cover for them. I honestly can't believe how fast we are going through all these tags, and finally we have the final question, the books that I need to read in the next quarter. Like I said earlier, there are more SFF new release in the next quarter from April to June, and I mean there are plenty of exciting ones. I have already made a video about my most anticipated release of 2025, so I will be quite brief here. And if you want a more detailed one, you can go and check that video out. By the end of March, of course, we're going to have Of Empire and Dust by Rank Hill. And in April, there are quite a lot of new books I can't wait to read because I mean, they are all sequels. First of all, I have A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett, the second book of the Shadow of the Leviathan series. It is a fantasy mystery and I would order my copy from Inkstone. I really enjoyed Detective Cup and I can't wait to solve a new case with Dean and Anne. The second one is The Book That Held Her Heart by Mark Lawrence, the third and also the last book of the Library trilogy. This one, I am curious to find out how Mark Lawrence gonna conclude this trilogy because I can't really tell, I can't really predict what sort of direction it is going for. And I have already ordered my matching set from the Lock Library. The last book in April is The Tainted Count, not Tainted Cup, by Tara Matharu, the second book of the Soulbound saga. I will get this one from Gospel because I get the first one from the GSFF, but unfortunately they're not going to make a matching slipcase with it, which is kind of disappointing. This one is like an interesting epic fantasy because the first book is fun but got some room of improvement. So I want to see will the pacing issue be improved in the second book. This one can be fun, you know. Then in May, of course, everyone is going to read this one. It is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. It is also the first book of a brand new fantasy horror series. I haven't checked out any work by Joe Abercrombie yet, so I want to read this one and see what's so special, what's so good about him. I have heard quite a lot of positive reviews from the First Law series, and some of you want me to read it too. So I think his characters and actions are really great, so I do have a high hope here. At last, of course, I'm going to have some books from subscription, and it is from the Broken Binding. I have the Rook and Rose series by M.A. Carrick. It is a relatively newer fantasy series, and it is leaning towards the magical side rather than the epic fantasy. Sorry to say, but I don't think this one is as hype as the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, which is their last fantasy pick, and I don't really see much people reading this series. So I can't wait to check out this series because I never be disappointed by the Broken Binding fantasy subscription. So this is my first quarter of 2025 review. I think here I have done quite a decent job. Even though the rating may not be that good, I can still keep up with my monthly reading goal. And how about your reading? Is there any ups and downs? You can share all your thoughts in the comment below. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my channel Dynasty so you won't miss anything from me. I'll see you all real soon. Goodbye.